Order. Welcome to meeting number 98 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the standing orders. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. I would like to make a few comments for the benefits of members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For members in the Zoom, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. For members on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. The clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best we can, and we appreciate your patience and understanding in this regard. To prevent disruptive audio feedback incidents during our meeting, we kindly ask that all participants keep their earpieces away from the microphone. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. Pursuant to Standing Order 106-4, the committee recommends consideration of the request by 5 members of the committee to undertake a study of the reclassification and transfer of Luca Magnotta and other federal offenders. I will now open the floor to debate. Mr. Caputo, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to be here on behalf of all Canadians and the people from Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou. Mr. Chair, this is what I can say in the circumstances. I think most Canadians were shocked at the transfer of Paul Bernardo, and I feel similarly Canadians are also shocked to find out that Luca Magnotta and others are not only in medium security but also in the same penitentiary. It's as conservatives, we will always stand with victims, stand with those seeking transparency, and those seeking the truth. And it's for that reason that today we bring forward this motion in light of the significant offenses that have been committed by not only these 2 people, but others who are in medium security to further study this. It's important that we get to the bottom of the impact of bills like Bill C-83 and other policies in place with this Liberal government. And with that, I will move my motion and read it into the record, Mr. Chair. The motion reads as follows: that in light of the transfer of sadistic killer Luca Magnotta out of a maximum security prison to a medium security prison, the same facility that serial killer and rapist Paul Bernardo was transferred to last year, and given that the Minister's office was made aware of these transfers in advance, the committee immediately undertake a study in priority order of no less than 6 meetings, and that these meetings begin this week on how the decision to make this transfer was made, the prisoner transfer process for prisoners in maximum security facilities, and the committee report its findings to the House of Commons, and the committee shall call the following witnesses to appear: A, the Commissioner of the Correctional Service of Canada, Anne Kelly; B, the Deputy Minister of Public Safety, Sean Tupper; C, the Minister of Public Safety and Democratic Institutions and Intergovernmental Affairs, the Honourable Dominic LeBlanc; D, the former Minister of Public Safety, the Honourable Marco Mendicino; E, the Chief of Staff to the Minister of Public Safety at the time; F, Janice Charette, former Clerk of the Privy Council; G, the Warden at La Macasa Institution; H, representatives from the Union of Canadian Correctional Officers; I, Marcia Penner, Tennille Chwalziak, and Laura Murray as individuals. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Caputo. And now we have Mr. Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know we've had a number of meetings on the issue of the Bernardo transfer already, but certainly new information has come to light that I think is shocking to Canadians. It's shocking because some people might have dismissed the transfer of Paul Bernardo as an isolated incident. I know that the Minister of Public Safety at the time said it was shocking and incomprehensible. But now we've learned that it's not just an isolated incident, that this is a pattern, a repeated pattern under this government, that several high-profile serial killers and killers have been moved out of maximum and into medium. Furthermore, there's been recent ATIPs that have revealed that the Chief of Staff of the Public Safety Minister at the time was aware that these transfers were taking place. And it's interesting because in all of our study about Paul Bernardo's transfer, the minister's office knew all along that Luca Magnotta was being transferred in 2022 as well, and yet that information was never brought to light. It was never revealed to this committee under our previous study, and that's not the only high-profile case that we've seen. And so I think
Point of order.
Point of order, Ms. O'Connell, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, can we get this motion distributed?
It has been. I'm told it just has been, Ms. O'Connell. Can you confirm if you received it?
I'm just checking, sorry. Clerk, it's in the committee binder. Can we get it distributed in both official languages and the text? We all have to log into our binders now?
Just check your email. The clerk is telling me it's attached to the email.
Okay. Okay, I have it.
Thank you. Continue, Mr. Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm certainly glad that all members are getting a copy of this motion. I think it's a very good motion. I think it hits at the heart of the matter. And it raises, this new information that we've received, that the Chief of Staff of the Public Safety Minister knew, that staff in the Prime Minister's office and the Privy Council office knew. I think this raises very important questions that need to be furthermore looked into, and this is a question about the principle of ministerial accountability. If there is a policy, unofficial or official, in ministers' offices or in the Prime Minister's office that staff are not to inform ministers of hot-button controversial issues, I think this undermines a key tenet of ministerial responsibility and ministerial accountability. And if that is indeed a policy, I think that needs to be looked into, because ministerial accountability is one of the bedrock principles of our parliamentary system of government, and we cannot allow mistakes like this, whether deliberate or from incompetence, to continue. And so it is a very worthwhile study for us to continue at this committee. And I think also we need to look further into Bill C-83 and other legislation that I think has been contributing to this rise in the amount of transfers out of maximum and into medium security prison. And so with that, I'll just be saying I support this motion, and I'll pass on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Polhus, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right now, public trust has been unbelievably compromised. I was here in 2019 when I was Vice Chair of Public Safety Committee, and when we worked on Bill C-83, the legislation that entered into force in 2019, and that changed detention conditions. And Mr. Chair, at the time when we debated such things and we worked on bills and adopted them, the public is not always aware of what is happening. But now we see the outcome. We see situations where Paul Bernardo is transferred to a medium security prison, and now Luca Magnotta, who has been in prison only for 10 years, has now been transferred to a medium security prison. People do not understand this, and it's only normal for them not to understand. Here we have a very important motion because we want to understand why the Liberal government has implemented such a bill in 2019 and how the process worked. And we're talking about victims most of all. And when we talk about victims, these are the people who are primarily concerned. The law is clear. Victims should be informed. Mr. Chair, let me show you something. This is the Charter of Victims' Rights. This charter has been in force since 2014, never respected by this government. The victims are entitled to information, right to protection, participation, and a right to move. Right to information and the participation was not respected. These are rights that have been violated in the case of Mr. Bernardo, Paul Bernardo's case. Why, Mr. Chair, should we always fight for victims? We always have to fight for the right of victims to be heard. Why do we have criminals like Paul Bernardo and Magnotta, just to name these ones, because I'm sure there are others who have been transferred in such conditions? Why do these people enjoy such improved conditions, whereas they're the worst criminals we have in Canada? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, did you call my name, Mr. Chair?
I did, yes. Sorry,
there's a little bit of a delay. Thanks, Chair. In And I'm glad we have this motion. I think from our perspective, we have no issue with looking further into transfers of prisoners, classifications, and working with this committee to put forward reasonable, worthwhile recommendations on how we can advance victims' rights in this country, how we can improve the system. But I think what we learned from the last few days of study that we did on this, because, Mr. Chair, it's important to note that this isn't actually new. This isn't something that the Conservatives are just bringing forward today. We actually, as a committee, have already held several meetings on this and heard testimony. And so this would be a continuation of that. So, you know, I think today, and I hope that today is not just Conservatives performing for clips, and that this committee is actually serious about working together to put forward serious, legitimate policy recommendations, how we can move things forward. And because that's exactly what we want to do and what we did as a committee when we all came prepared to ask questions of CSC and the witnesses that we had before on this very issue. So again, no issue as we've participated and asked these tough questions, as I think all Canadians want to. I will point out, however, I think it's important that we do look into this. It was stated just in the earlier speaker, Chair, that this was somehow related to a liberal legislation or change, and that's simply not true. In fact, some of the highest years of prisoner classification changes from maximum to medium were under Harper Conservative governments. In 2012 and 2013, there were 291 reclassification from maximum to medium. In 2013 to 14, 319 from maximum to medium. So if there's a question of how this is happening, what the policies are in place for the Correctional Services Canada, then I think that's a wholesome conversation we need to have. But I think putting it out there that this was somehow a change in legislation or policy is, frankly, Mr. Chair, just not accurate, because I think it's important that Canadians understand if there are certain politicians trying to use the most heinous and horrendous crimes in this country as a fear-mongering tactic to suggest that current policies are somehow different from when Conservatives have held office, because I think it's important we actually get this data on the table so Canadians see exactly how decisions are made. If this committee wants to make recommendations to the government to make changes or review policy, I think that's absolutely appropriate. But if there's this suggestion, if we're starting off at this base of misinformation, that there was a policy change when, Mr. Chair, I just outlined the highest number of maximum to medium reclassification in our justice system happened in the year of 2013-2014 under the Conservative so-called tough on crime language. So I think it's important we get the facts, and that's why we're very happy to continue to hold meetings on this and make legitimate, fulsome policy recommendations based on what we hear, and ensuring that Canadians' voices are at the table. But like I said, Mr. Chair, I think it's incredibly important that we start from a place of truth and honesty. And so I hope that the continuation of this meeting does do that, because I do think we have a number of policy insights and things that I think every member of this committee would want to share. Mr. Chair, I'll just